Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael. I didn't hear him.
Howdy.
Hi. Richard and Michael like to debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of any given topic, and this week is the Mount Rushmore of female rockers. I am the judge, but this week I'm the co-judge because on board we have actually a legit rockin' musician, a young woman who's been a good friend of mine for quite some time, who's played in bands and is a super cool co-judge. Please welcome to the podcast, Miki Black. How you doing, Miki?
Hello there. I am doing wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're very happy to have you here. Miki, you've worked in various aspects of the industry of entertainment. Could you describe what you've done and what you do and social handles for people to find you?
Well, I kind of threw myself into everything I could, entertainment-wise. Musically, I've been a musician since I was little, and then I made it out to California and got myself in a band playing guitar. I somehow got into modeling and acting stuff here and there, just, playing around and kind of run the gamut on the whole thing.
Awesome. Well, we are very excited to have you and here on the podcast. And I will say I've heard Miki shred, and she's awesome, although very humble and always learning and honing her skills. So we are going to jump into the Mount Rushmore of female rockers. But first I want to ask, Miki, did you ever set out to be a female musician or just a musician?
Well, back in the Stone Age, when I first started, actually there weren't many female rockers, like especially guitarists, and I played lead guitar, so it was very few. And so I did set out to be a female rock musician. Yes.
To make a point that
absolutely, yeah, because when I started playing, I was in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois, and there was only a couple of us there was only a couple girls that even played electric guitar. It was that sparse. It was in the 80s, like 87. No, 87. Yeah, that's when I started.
Awesome. So it was something in which you were trying to raise awareness, and that in this somewhat the sausage party of rock and roll had a lot of room for kick-ass gals to come in.
Yeah, I wanted to make a mark, and I wanted to play electric guitar. I also listened to mostly male-dominated rock and heavy metal. See, so that's kind of where that stemmed from. So it wasn't initially, I just happened to be a female.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I were a guy, it would have been the same exact thing. But I was like, okay, I'm a chick and I want to play the guitar. And so.
Right on. I would love to, as the conversation evolves, to find out, have you ever had any friction or any dudes kind of like, or gals in entertainment or rock have a problem with you being in that position?
No, not necessarily where I was, kind of talked down to. I was getting hit on. That was kind of an issue sometimes. I felt like I might not have been, there's an agenda, to some things, but luckily I feel pretty good about how I've been treated in the industry.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I would love to talk more about what makes a female rocker a rocker. I would also just like to say that we try to be very woke bros here on the Mount Rushmore podcast, and part of this is to just draw attention to the fact that women are very much a part of the entertainment industry, very much a part of music, and can very much rock and don't always get the optics that they deserve. So that's the reason for even designating this topic, the Mount Rushmore of female rockers. So eeny, meeny, miny, Michael, you're going to go first with your first choice on Mount Rushmore of female rockers. What is it?
Okay, super. My first choice was Siouxsie Sioux from the band Siouxsie and the Banshees and the Creatures. I mean, it was pretty amazing that Siouxsie and the Banshees were able to find a lead singer with that first name.
What a coincidence.
I mean, you put an ad out, your name of your band is Siouxsie and the Banshees, and then Siouxsie Sue comes in, and she's like, wow, what are the odds? And you're just like, oh, match
Wait,
made in heaven.
your name's Fred, and the band's called Right Said Fred. Oh, my gosh.
How did that happen?
She later went on to form two bands. I mean, she was the lead singer, obviously, of the Banshees, but then she also, with her husband, Budgie, had another band called The Creatures, which was a little bit different. But Siouxsie is so amazing as a front woman for everything she's done. She has like this constantly mutating punk rock, new wave, goth kind of voodoo exotica thing. And that's just like the image that she kind of changes and projects like on stage. But then she also has just this amazing voice that kind of can be very deep and very haunting, but then kind of get really high up there, and she can just really belt it out as just like a rocker on stage. And back in the late 70s when punk rock started in England and New York, I'm sure that she was one of very few like punk rock singers that had a woman as the front. Maybe there are a few others, but in an era that was then dominated by, I'm sure, the Sex Pistols and the Ramones and who knows who else. Here comes this woman that is just she's just out of this world in everything that she does. And I just love how she has kind of constantly, I think this is a theme that seems to happen in a lot of my choices, it's just kind of evolved within the music industry. One of their first big songs, Spellbound, is just like this kind of the Banshees is just like this kind of driving super frenetically paced, just kind of punk, like new wave song. And then you get to some of their later work, like Peekaboo, and it's just like this kind of looping, kind of sounds like it's played backwards, big accordion song with just like these kind of seemingly voodoo type lyrics. And and she can cover both so well. And I just think that she is just incredible.
Cool.
Yeah, Siouxsie was on was part of the interview that the Sex Pistols did with Bill Grundy, the infamous interview that they did on British television, where they started swearing and kind of the whole thing went off the rails. She was not really part of the group, but she was part of the social circle. So they had her on the air, and actually the host, what kind of set everyone off is the host started like leering at her and making these kind of rude comments to her, and then that's what got everyone else so upset. And she obviously doesn't need anyone to defend her. She can defend herself very well. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. So it was kind of the sexism. When I think of Michael was almost bringing up one of the interesting aspects of punk, which was a musical phenomenon, is breaking from norms and trying to challenge norms. And but yet, like a lot of musical groups, they were still often dominated by a male frontman. But yeah, it's a funny thing to think of them, the Ramones, as coming to your defense. The knights in shining armor.
Well, and one of the things about Siouxsie, like Michael said, is she's very much a chameleon, and that was very much at the vanguard of whatever the times were. Peekaboo is something that Michael mentioned. That's a dance song in a lot of ways. And you contrast that with a lot of the earlier stuff, whether it's punk or whether it's, proto-goth. She is somebody who has the ability to be able to understand where the cultural zeitgeist is going.
Yeah.
And really fucking nail it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Siouxsie and the Banshee stories was that at some point, like, The Cure was pretty big at the time too, and at some point Robert Smith just kind of started playing with the Banshees as well as just like their guitarist, and so he would open for them with the Cure, and then would wander back on stage, after the break and pick up the guitar, and was just like their touring guitarist for a period. That like they were so much bigger than the Cure for a little bit of time that he was just like, oh yeah, the Cure was opening for Siouxsie, but then he was just like going back and forth between them.
I'd be interested if in any of the choices that you pick for female rockers, are they all the guitarists? And was Sue a guitarist?
I don't believe so. I think she was just the lead singer. But there's so many artists that play music on an album, but just don't on stage. They'll have like a touring guitarist. Yeah. So she might. I'm sure she contributed musically, just as so many singers do. But I don't ever remember seeing her with a guitar.
Yeah.
It's funny, Jeff. I actually had to look that up myself because I was like, which one? I don't know. It doesn't. It's not like it's a deciding factor. But I did find some pictures of her with a guitar, so maybe she did once in a while play.
Yeah. I am interested in what does a female rocker make, and does it need to be a front person? Maybe. Does it need to be a person who actually writes, a singer-songwriter, actually writes the music? I don't know. Could be. I think we all know it when we see it. Like somebody who encapsulates the anger and aggression of rock and roll. Well, for sure. I think so. Or can command a stage and an audience. So, Manfredi, what's your first choice?
I'm going to work backwards from most recent to kind of earliest. So my first one is St. Vincent.
All right.
Also on my list.
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's not that surprising, I guess, Michael. I know you're a big fan of hers. Most of us know her as one of the guitar players from the Polyphonic Spree. No, that's not where most of us know her from. Although that was where she got her start.
Was that true?
Yeah, she was one of the. For a while, she was one of the 50 or 60 band members in the Polyphonic Spree.
And the 10th alto.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was in the Polyphonic Spree for a little bit. So many people were in the band. We've talked about on the show that it's hard for new music to kind of break through with me at this point. I'm almost going to be 45. I've just kind of got this block in front of me that's just really hard to penetrate. And St. Vincent's one of the exceptions to the rule. I just find her to be so fascinating. Talk about her as a singer, a songwriter, a very accomplished guitar player as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody who's I think of as an iconoclast in a lot of ways. Like her songs sound different than anyone else's songs. Like you can hear a St. Vincent song and pretty much immediately lock into it that it's a St. Vincent song. Very much the sort of combination, kind of edgy rock, kind of art rock with some dance elements to kind of art pop kind of elements to it as well, I would say. I think of her, I think it's very interesting that I know, Michael, you saw her tour with David Byrne, right?
Yeah, I've seen her play solo a couple of times in different concerts, and then saw her when she did the David Byrne thing at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah, and I think of her in some ways as being sort of an heir to the throne of David Byrne from Talking Heads, if you will. I think they both have very unique styles, like very herky-jerky kind of rhythms, very angular guitars. And I just think she's one of the most talented musicians of our generation, full stop, male, female, I don't care.
Yeah, she definitely, having seen her in concert a couple of times, or I saw her in concert, like kind of on either side of playing with David Byrne, and her kind of art rockness definitely kind of tuned up. I wonder if it was just being exposed to whatever radiation David Byrne gives off is.
Secondhand burn.
Yeah, she got secondhand burns. but she's just so phenomenal as like a stage performer. With there's a certain sense of like choreography that she has within each album. She just keeps kind of changing and adding just such depth as a performer, as a guitarist. I believe that she has kind of designed her own guitars because she was kind of fed up with the way that guitars that were built for like a man's body were never considered to be built for a woman's. And she just like, she has her like St. Vincent style guitar that she designed and built with. I can't remember who it was with, but she's just like, that's how into it she is. And she is just so good. Just so good.
Michael kind of brought up an interesting aspect of actually Richard, I think, started by talking about how kind of calcified one's musical taste become after a certain age. Any new music has to compete with the best of 4 decades worth of music, and it's hard to open the door to somebody just kind of trying something because it's almost like every new meal has to be better than every meal that you ever had, or better than the best one. So I'm fascinated by the role of the female rocker and all the things that St. Vincent has to be before some people will let her just rock. Like you have to be attractive, you have to have an interesting visual, not have to, but it helps if you have an interesting visual presence to cut through this kind of very image-based marketing strategy that people have. You have to maybe be unique. You have to find some kind of new way to sell this idea of this rock and roll medium. It's really kind of I don't know. It's almost 100 years old. So, Miki, do you recall it being kind of hard to just get out there on stage and do your thing? Like you have to do so many other things.
Oh,
do you recall?
Yeah, because I was involved with so many other things. So it kind of, it all kind of came together, like the look with, I at the time when I was really in the industry doing a lot, people would kind of come down on me like, well, what are you? Are you a model? Are you a musician? It's like they didn't want me to do multiple things and have them tied together. Now it's fine. But it was weird. I had people actually confused by what I was trying to do. I was like, well, I want to do many things,
Yeah.
Are you a singer? Are you a guitarist? Are you this or that? So it's times have changed. I really feel old these days. I'm like, times have changed so much that it's very shocking. Now I feel like everything, everything goes, and there's so many female musicians now. Like it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I will say the especially in her music video work, St. Vincent almost has this almost art school a la David Byrne, very polished presence and very coiffed, very presented kind of presence, not unlike a pop star you would expect from like a Katy Perry or something like that, but it definitely has more of an edge, almost like she's channeling Patti Smith or something like that along the way.
There's something David Lynchian about a lot of her music videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think is intentional.
Yeah. So cool. So all right, you guys.
I'll throw in there something.
Oh, lay it on us.
Checking out her guitar playing is really unique. I was really impressed. Really impressed. And I think, is she the one that was on the Grammys? I was really, really impressed by her.
Yeah. There was a video that I clicked on where she's showing a guy her different voicings and chord fingerings, and the guy's trying to figure out like what the heck are you playing? So
yeah, it's odd, but in a good way.
Yeah, definitely made the instrument her own.
Yeah.
Super cool. Richard, what do you got?
All right, so we go back a little bit into the 80s and early 90s. I am going to choose Exene Cervenka,
Sweet.
the lead singer, co-lead songwriter of the beloved Los Angeles punk band X.
Yeah, this is definitely a regional pick for sure.
Yeah,
love X, but this is definitely like you got to be in it to really love Exene and X.
Yeah, like if you grew up within driving distance of Los Angeles, you probably had several albums. If you didn't, I don't know, maybe you didn't. But you look at a song like Los Angeles, which I think is probably the X song that most people, if they know an X song, that's the song they're going to know. Co-written with her and her, at the time, husband, John Doe. And he had this very kind of greaser, cool kind of vibe to him. He had like the greased up pompadour, and he would have like the denim, a lot of times like denim shirts that are unbuttoned. And he kind of had that very rockabilly kind of almost singing style to him. And Exene was definitely more of an untrained kind of wild card factor with her singing. She got to be a much better singer as her career went on. But it really was about the force of her presence for the early part of her career. She was someone who just was especially if you watch any of their live shows from the early, 1978, 79, around that time period. I mean, she's just, you can't take your eyes off of her. She is like this very, like, almost violent kind of on-stage presence. But at the same time, also capable of writing these incredible lyrics. My favorite X song is a song called The Have-Nots. And it's sung by John Doe, but it's written by Exene Cervenka, and it's this great kind of almost proto-Americana type song. And I just love it. And I didn't realize it was an Exene written song for years. Because John Doe sang it, so I assumed it was one of his songs. But nope, it's an Exene song. And I think that she, to me, represents a lot of the best of what punk rock could be. I mean, her lyrics and her writing were very much influenced by a lot of poets. So there was something trying to be more aspirational than just, bashing out these real basic lyrics to go along with your 3-chord songs. And I just think that she's fantastic. I've seen X live several times. They always put on a good show, even though they're now probably, in their 60s at this point, and still able to do it at the highest level every time I've seen them play. So, yeah, absolutely, just a huge X fan, and therefore a huge Exene fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Richard, you're talking about her songwriting. Actually, I've seen her playing guitar, at least acoustic, in some videos. So there's that part of my theory, or the universal theory of what makes a female rocker. But also that entire band seems to have some deep skills. Multi-instrumentalists in that band do the deep skills that band has. Like punk bands usually don't have those kind of chops. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, you have this weird rockabilly guy as your lead guitar player. You've got a drummer who also dabbles as a jazz xylophonist in his spare time.
Yeah,
it's just all over the place.
DJ plays clarinet or something.
Yeah, something weird like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Such a cool band. Miki, I think you're from Chicago. I'm from Kansas City, so X was not part of my vocabulary growing up. What about you?
Yeah, I'm from Springfield. I wish I could say Chicago. Springfield was a little redneck.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Cornfield. But no, I did not know of them, but what I checked out was pretty damn cool. And I like what you're saying about the whole, like the almost different kind of genres each musician had.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, bringing to the form of rock this depth of influence and background. It's super cool. All right, so it looks like we are then at our halftime, and at this point we're going to ask you to go back and download, rate, and review previous episodes. We'd appreciate that. Seriously, we do want to know what you think. Let us know if you like something or where we could improve. And then go out on our social handles and get in a dialogue with us. Let us know topics for future episodes. We really do care. We really do go out there and read comments and things. We're not too busy leading our celebrity lives to be in a conversation with the folks that listen to our podcast.
Hey,
Sarcasm.
I live a rock and roll lifestyle, Jeff. So I've got
so do.
I've got more important things to do.
That's right.
I let my little people handle that.
Yeah, sorry. I'll summarize them when we talk. I'll read them.
Please do.
The feedback and talk. So that would be super cool if you would do that. And with that, we are back, and we are chatting about female rockers, and we have a certified female rocker on the line in the form of Miki Black. Miki, where can people find you out on social media?
They can find me on Instagram as Miki Black Official, Miki Black Official, and on Facebook it is reversed official Miki Black.
Oh, cool. So
I'm not on Twitter. I am, but I went away from it. So
okay, yeah,
Good for you.
Yeah, good call.
I spent the entire Trump administration avoiding that platform completely. So a couple of things I'm interested in is what you got to be a female rocker, and I will confess that sometimes it is a cheat. I will look up our topic, whatever that topic is, that is going to be on the Mount Rushmore podcast. I'll look it up out there and see what comes up, and like Stevie Nicks comes up for female rocker, or Linda Ronstadt comes up for female rocker, and I know they work in the milieu of rock and roll. But I don't know if I don't think they fit this prototype in my brain, of usually leather-clad, black jeans, usually brunette, I think. Is that
I'm gonna go 4 for 4 on like almost leather-clad brunettes for whatever reason.
We have Lita Ford, though. We're missing a big one.
Lita Ford, that's right, the blonde.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Really is an excellent guitarist.
Absolutely. So I love to know when things derivate from the form. And also, not that the Rock Hall of Fame is any kind of barometer, right? I know. But I will say the women who are in the Rock Hall of Fame are very, very much deserving of their place. But I would say that if you define what rock is, it has all these influences. This is a big stew of all this different stuff. They are definitely more, the earlier ones at least, seated in the kind of the roots of it. So Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner, all these women who are in the Rock Hall of Fame predate punk for the most part.
Yeah.
But except for one, I think who knows we might talk about. So there's the archetype, and then there's, as always, those things that defy the archetypes. Winfield, what do you got?
My third choice is Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. And Karen O is just one of those, so many of my choices, as we'd mentioned, there definitely is like a theatricality to it. And, being part of rock and roll, there is like this, the person is at the front of the stage and they're just commanding the entire stage. It doesn't matter how many members in your band. The Yeah Yeah Yeahs had 3 members, but they're totally faded to the background the second she walks out on stage and performs and just dominates everything. And I think that is such an important part, being a rock star and rocker in this case, and female rocker even more diluted. It's just, you are there and the spotlight is on you, and you have to just rise to the occasion. And Karen O is just so phenomenal at it, but she has like this great duality of being really tough, really intense, really loud, really brash, but then she is equally just what's the word? She is so vulnerable. And I think that, like, in these kind of great tradition of, like, these big rock bands that put out these big heavy songs and then they have like these ballads, I think that she does both aspects of like rock and roll so well. And sure, she comes out of like a New York kind of post-punk, post-new wave, early 2000s kind of art rock scene to a degree, she just sings so incredibly and so like viscerally. And I'm going to tell one story about why she possibly just went on stage that I've ever seen. Is in 2004, I saw her with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs perform in Seattle, and she came out on stage and was just tearing it up. And at some point, they started playing a song called Art Star, and it's this kind of song that's very it starts out kind of like meandering, and it's kind of not very, the entire song isn't really elegant. It's just kind of like, it's there, and it's like making fun of like pompous art school kids, like rich art school kids. And then she takes like nearly the entire microphone, at least the head of the microphone, has the entire thing in her mouth, just hands free, and just starts screaming the title Art Star. Just as if you've ever heard the song, it's so loud and so vocally like destroying, and it was just the most badass thing I've ever seen. I don't know what it was. It was just like, I'm in awe of this person, just the performance of it. Mm-hmm. And I've just loved their music, all of the stuff that they put out with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, except their last album, Mosquito, was kind of not that great. But she's been able to kind of continue as this amazing kind of front woman, but also do like weird stuff with Spike Jonze. She did like all the music for Where the Wild Things Are, which I thought was kind of just a weird movie, but the music was just but she's sung all the songs for that, and the music was great. I didn't really like the movie all that much, and she put out something with Danger Mouse last year or a year and a half ago, something like that, where she's just very like diverse and just, I don't know, she's just awesome. And I love just these awesome people that aren't like, never feels stuck, never feels like caught unable to perform in any way. And I think that's what kind of rock and roll's about.
Yeah, that's cool. So I do feel like rock is not dissimilar to many other endeavors. One thing I'll say is rock is kind of an aggressive act, or I think performing is kind of an aggressive act. And I think for a woman in this, unfortunately, this kind of toxic masculine veneer that we still have on our culture, for a woman to command a stage and demand that every person, female, male, be under her control as the lead singer, to own the audience. She almost has to work twice as hard because there's a bunch of douche nozzle dudes out there who've got their arms folded and are saying, "You're not Mick Jagger. you can't rock my face off." It's like, well, clearly it sounds like from the moment you described with Karen O, she had the skill, she had the charisma, she had the energy, and she had the sheer power of will to bend the audience to her demands that they take heed of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Mickey, how many times have you
combined the two of us?
I did. Mickey, tell me some rock and roll tricks. What's something you sometimes do to rock out? Like, is it head bashing? Is there something like a strum the guitar and then do a scissor kick in the air or something like that? Do you have any rock and roll?
I can only wish I could jump like David Lee Roth, and I can't. I kind of do not move around a ton. I'm kind of a stoic player, standing
you
there.
Want to be a musician.
Head movements are good. Head movements are always, throwing the hair around. We got to do that. But I'm not a trick person. I don't have I'm just a player.
Not a show pony. Yeah.
My look, though, I always have to have the look down. That's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say that Miki has maybe underplayed a little bit some of the aspects of her career in modeling and whatnot. I think it was on one of her social handles that somebody posted a photo of a tattoo that they got of of Miki Black, and I think there might be more than one person out there on the planet who has a Miki Black tattoo. Is that right, Miki? As creepy as it may sound?
Artist Dave Nestler that I worked with for years, he would paint me, and somehow, I guess through the shows that he would do for his art, the tattoo community picked up, and there's a couple images that one, me holding a guitar, schoolgirl outfit, and they got tattooed on probably 30 people.
Holy smokes.
Crazy. Yeah, it became a thing. It just became a thing. The images he did were so he just did such a great job. They're almost like logos. They almost came he painted them very realistically, but the poses and everything about them was just it just
iconic. Wow.
I didn't want to say that about myself. Sorry.
Iconic Miki Black.
I lost the words there for a minute. I was like, that's cool. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, Richard, what's your next choice?
All right, my next choice is Chrissie Hynde from The Pretenders.
Yes. Oh, awesome.
I felt like this was actually, she was the reason why I came up with this topic in the first place. I was listening to Sirius XM. I can't remember what station. It might have been the 80s station. It might have been First Wave. And Time the Avenger came on. And I just thought, that's a great song. Then I started thinking about all of these other Pretender songs. I was like, yep, that's a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song fucking rocks. Yeah, that does too. And next thing you know, it's just like a dozen songs that are all just absolute crushes.
Yeah.
I think Chrissie Hynde is one of the most underrated songwriters of all time. You know, beyond being a front woman and a singer and having this very distinctive, unique vocal style, where you can kind of hone in on what a Chrissie Hynde song, what a Pretender song sounds like, you know, immediately because of her voice. I just think as a songwriter, you know, she's just a great rock and roll songwriter. And I know that she kind of came up she's an American who was in England during the punk rock movement. And that's kind of where the types of clubs where she got her start. I don't consider them to be a punk band. I don't consider them to be a new wave band. I think they're just a top 5 all-time rock and roll band.
Mm-hmm.
For me at least, would certainly be in that conversation. I think her ability to write a riff is pretty unparalleled.
Oh yeah, Miki, are you a fan?
I am a fan. Yes, I am definitely a fan, and I think her style and it's very commercial. I mean, I guess the stuff I know, gosh, I probably shouldn't say that. There's probably a lot that's not, but yeah, I've been a fan for many years.
Oh yeah, I think it's funny, her and Petty were people who had found success and an audience in England, and then were transmitted over to the U.S. as what felt like a new wave group until people kind of realized what they were. Oh, this is some guy from Gainesville, or this is some gal from Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, both the Pretenders and Tom Petty. I remember my brother, who we've talked about a lot on the show, was my older brother, who was the cool music conduit for me. They were two more kind of what you would call classic rock artists that he kind of was like, yeah, they're cool.
Yeah.
You know, they were the rock band that the new wave kids could still get behind, or the punk rock kids could get behind.
Yeah. I think Chrissie Hynde has also always kept, some of these, I don't know how far, I don't know if she was on campus during Kent State, like when you hear Joe Walsh, hear Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo talk about these Ohio area musicians who were impacted by students being murdered, the protests.
Right.
And Chrissie Hynde has always retained her politics as a big part of her songwriting, but also injecting them with these heartfelt, soulful topics. So they like Kid, Talk of the Town, like the Brass in Pockets, like it's just such heartfelt. You know you're a badass when you can go on stage and bare your soul like that, and your lyrics just aren't a fuck you shield that you put up between yourself and your audience. So yeah, she's always been, and she's playing those rhythm riffs. Talk of the Town is that's her rhythm guitar. It's not like she's delegating that responsibility to somebody else, even on stage now. So I think that's pretty cool.
She's like Chuck Berry. She's a great rhythm guitar player.
Yeah.
Chuck Berry was not a great lead guitar player. I don't remember Chrissie Hynde playing a lot of lead. But there's something to be said for being a great rhythm guitar player. That's a very hard thing to do. And I think she's really underratedly great at it.
Yeah. So Miki, I want to make sure that we don't get all. This is not the mansplaining episode of the Mount Robots. We're going to mansplain female rockers to folks. So I want to make sure that before we get off, you inject the conversation with some female rockers that you might be afraid we won't mention. And I think Lita Ford was one that you brought up. Can you tell me about her history? Was she in a group perhaps before she went on her own?
She was in the Runaways.
Yes, cool. What do you like about Lita Ford?
Well, I'll be honest. Back in the day, I was kind of an asshole. I was into all the male groups: Iron Maiden, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, a lot of classic stuff, Zeppelin and Judas Priest, Rush. And for some reason, I don't know why, I wasn't actually into the female rockers. Mm-hmm. It was weird. And once I finally was like, why am I doing that? I paid attention and realized some of them are pretty amazing. And Lita Ford is the guitar is what is impressive to me. Her guitar skills. And then Heart, big fan of both of them. They're both amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Blown away by Ann Wilson's voice. I mean, who can top that, really? That's one of my favorites. And Joan Jett. See, I didn't like Joan. Actually, this is why. This is the real reason. Every time I would tell people that I play guitar, they would always say Joan Jett. Like Joan Jett. I had black hair. It just happened to be that's who they could think of. Lita Ford and Joan Jett were the two back in the 80s that were out there in terms of, I'm talking about just rockers, heavy metal rock. And so I was always compared to them, and it was annoying. I'm not saying I played, like them. It was just, I'm a female rocker, so that's who they're going to categorize me. So I started getting like, no, I'm me, it's just stupid, really. And then I learned to really, really respect them. So yeah, Joan Jett's, another one that's amazing. Of course, Stevie Nicks, love her, amazing. So yeah, I'm going back to the classics. And then we've got Debbie Harry, Blondie.
Oh yeah,
yeah, of course.
She's
I think another Ohioan. Was she an Ohioan? Pittsburgh.
No, that. Yeah. And then it was funny because when I was looking up, just to refresh, who or even see who's considered rock, I was getting disgusted, and I knew this was going to happen because Madonna's name popped up. I'm like, why? Avril Lavigne. No, why? And I was getting really annoyed because some of the names popping up, I'm like, that is not cool. That is not rock. So it was very, very interesting.
Okay, Michael Winfield, what is your final choice? And alert, Miki Black, we are going to have to, between the two of us, choose 4 winners. So we know these are not the winners of only. That doesn't mean they're the best or most or whatever. They'll just be the one who won. So Winfield, what's your final selection?
it was funny. Earlier in this conversation, Richard kind of alluded to this aspect of like being in your 40s and like being stuck in your musical what have yous, like you're just you've decided what you like and you are not going to pursue that. I have this exact opposite thing that I do, and it's all thanks to like Apple Music, and we're not getting paid by Apple Music to promote this aspect. But when like you're signing up for the here you go. But when you kind of sign up for their kind of whatever you have, their subscription service or whatever, you kind of put in, oh, what kind of music do you like and what kind of bands do you like and this and that, and you kind of, these little cute bubbles pop up and you're like, oh, I like this and this, and here's Modest Mouse, and here's Siouxsie and the Banshees, and here's the Smiths, and here's la 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 la, and then it all kind of takes it all in. It's like, thanks, and then you start getting like kind of boring playlists based on your own music at first.
Oh, yeah.
But every week they have this new thing, and I've been listening to it for the last few years, which is just like music that we think you'll like, and it's just this playlist that's auto-generated. It comes out every Friday, and on it, there's like 40 different songs or whatever, and they always change. This is a lot of like prelude. I feel like this is like the first 9 minutes to like the Lord of the Rings, where we're talking about how we got to the Shire. But so music is constantly like being pumped into my head, and a lot of it I hate. I hate just boring. It's just, or just like their algorithm is just wrong. But every once in a while, there's something that's like really incredible that pops up, and I'll throw it into like another playlist that is called New Music I Like. It's just the stuff it's the filtered down stuff. And then I heard this incredible song by hold on, I'm going to find out which one it was. I'm looking through my playlist real quick. It was this song, Come Back Kid, and it was by an artist named Sharon Van Etten. And I hadn't heard anything like it. It was like pure rock and roll. It was just super emotional lyrics, super guitar driven, well produced, just incredible. And like she's this very interesting kind of coming out of like a kind of indie folk tradition songwriter, singer-songwriter, that her first album from about a decade ago was pretty simple, very heartfelt, very straightforward. But then in 2019, she put out this album called Remind Me Tomorrow. And this thing is it's so just kick ass. And there's a couple of songs that are just incredible. Come Back Kid and 17. 17 is this kind of just driving ballad about what she imagines these conversations she's going to have with her future daughter, who's going to grow up to be like her and make all the same sort of mistakes that she made. But she is just so, like, it was such a transformation from like her. I went back and listened to like her early stuff to her newer stuff, and like her early stuff is a lot more in kind of like a indie and kind of folk driven thing, and this thing was just rock and roll. And I love this idea, and I realized later, like as we were talking about these female rockers, as someone that has transformed, just has this great presence, and I don't know, I love finding new music this way, of just like filtering out new artists into things that I like. And I found that so many new artists that I do like are female artists. I shouldn't be surprised by that. I don't think I am surprised by that, but it's just over and over, whether it's like Molly Birch, or whether it's this Mia Folick, or whether it's just kind of looking through a band called Tides, or whether it's By Beneco, all these different new artists, all the stuff I like is written by and performed by women, and it's just there feels like a really interesting, like don't want to say like a renaissance, but just like this new influx of like what I like is what women are putting out there, and Sharon Van Etten is just incredible. Go find her latest album, and it's just great. And I don't know, and it's one of those things, like I wouldn't be surprised if she continued to put out more stuff like this, because it was just really spoke to me.
Cool. I think I did click on a few videos, and leather-clad, rockin', dark-haired, commanding the stage. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think there's something that women are allowed to do with art or with rock or with music right now that is kind of in a renaissance? Is it that you just find yourself kind of tired of the same old stuff that the dudes in rock are putting out there or music?
I think there's that, but I also think that there is a freedom to produce things that you want to produce, whether it's like, kind of this Pro Tools setup where, like, people that are making music are making it from their bedrooms and garages, but they're not sounding like from their bedrooms and garages. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely a self-ownership and a self-production that I'm sure, Miki might know as someone who's been in the industry. So I think that there is an element of self-production in you're making these things within your home with Pro Tools. You're playing music and recording music at an almost professional sounding level, and you don't have to go into, a traditional studio to do it, or you don't have to, sign a big record contract, and, whether it's, you're getting $800,000 or $1.2 million to, be signed by whoever, Sony, Warner Music, or whatever, and have to pay it back. And it's just like, you're just making stuff that sounds as good at home. And I think that it takes away, I think the ownership goes back to the actual artist rather than, I don't know, at least that, maybe I'm wrong. I've never spent any time within the music industry, so yeah. I don't know.
I do find myself a little bit weary of the some of like where the lyrics go in most male rock. I've spent 51 and a half years of my life as a male, and I'm not too interested in hearing that kind of posturing, toxic masculinity anymore. So it is always very fun to hear a woman's perspective. Not that women don't have the same damn primal urges that dudes do, but it's really fun, kind of fun to actually learn something and get some insight in my rock and roll. Miki, are you a songwriter? Ever?
I'm not necessarily, more lyrics. I love writing poetry, writing song lyrics, but I cannot claim that I'm a writer.
Yeah. I wonder which you would think is more hard, like to come up with some kind of riff versus actually coming up with an original thought to lend to the genre of rock and roll. It seems like most of the topics have been covered, but and musically, rock can fit within certain templates, and it's hard to break out of it. But I'm fascinated by people who can come up with something interesting and original in a genre that's been around for so long.
Yeah, for me, I have so many crazy life experiences that I draw from that.
Yeah.
And I've had so many, and yes, many have been covered, but I it's almost like the era combined with the experience, and that's how I write when I write lyrics. But yeah, I have to laugh because growing up, I was listening to like Motley Crue and stuff like that. And when I listen to the lyrics and I'm singing along like I'm a guy or something, they're talking about banging chicks and all this and drugs and all that. I'm like, it's funny when I look back because you know how they're there's so many things now that they're banning this and canceling that. But if you listen, like old school rock and roll, almost every song at this point, you'd be like, oh, that's bad, 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 bad. Every single.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It actually makes me laugh because it's so not it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. There we are.
Yeah. You weren't singing "She's My Cherry Pie." You were like.
No, and I didn't like that song. I thought that song was cheesy. And a lot of the songs that all the girls would like of rock, I think that was my laptop. Sorry. But I didn't like those typically. Like You Shook Me, AC/DC, all the girls go, ah, and they'd start dancing. Those were the songs I'm like, oh, I don't like that.
That's
I
funny.
like a lot of Iron Maiden songs about Greek mythology.
Oh, nice.
And like, yeah, there's I always listen to the lyrics too. That was a big thing for me. I've heard many musicians say that lyrics are not important, and for me, they are very important. Every song I've ever liked, I will look up the lyrics or listen and see what it's about. It does to me make a big difference.
Oh, for sure. And sometimes in the milieu of rock, where musically some songs can be similar, the lyrics are what really makes a statement and makes one song different from the other. So let's get our last choice in from our friend Richard Manfredi.
So I'm going to choose someone that, Miki, you referenced earlier. Madonna. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
Hey, I do like Madonna, just not for rock.
Although, to be fair, Ray of Light is kind of a banger. I am choosing Joan Jett for my last choice.
Sweet.
I know I could have, in terms of the Runaways, you could have gone, really any of them were badasses. Knowing what they had to put up with just with Kim Fowley alone was surviving him was a feat unto itself. But I just think for someone who has been doing it for as long as she has and is still, I've seen some concert clips of her recently, still puts on a fantastic show. And I love the fact that I believe after Bad Reputation came out, she just said, oh, that's a good groove. And she has done every song that she has recorded since then. Basically is just re-recording Bad Reputation. I mean, even the cover songs, like I know there's like a Cheap Trick cover that I think she did Surrender, but it sounds pretty much exactly like that same straight eight sort of thing for Bad Reputation, just with slightly different melody and different lyrics. I'm fascinated by artists who just kind of like have their, like Bo Diddley had the Bo Diddley beat, and that's what he did, and he didn't really try to do something different. He knew what he was good at, and he did it well. And I think Joan Jett very much falls into that category of somebody who found their musical style, found what works for them, and just continues to do it.
Yeah.
And she just seems like personally just a real badass.
Oh yeah.
I agree on that. Yeah, she has her own style. You could hear two words come out of a song and that's Joan Jett.
Yep. Yeah, and she, after the Runaways broke up, she had trouble getting a solo record deal, so she and her producer basically started their own record label.
Is that right? Oh.
Yeah, Blackheart Records. And they wound up kind of putting out I Love Rock and Roll, and it was a big hit, and Bad Reputation was a big hit, and it kind of turned her career around, and it was not something that she relied on someone else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in 1980 was an era where a female, solo artist co-running their own record label was just not something that was really even in the thoughts for most people.
Uh-huh.
Wow, I had no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just a complete badass on and off the stage.
Yeah. Sherry Ann Curie being another blonde, but definitely another runaway. But what I love about a song like Cherry Bomb, I think that's a co-write with Kim Fowley, is it's a rock and roll song, but it's not a song in which the composer is not just emulating male rock. It's about this kind of kick-ass kind of girl power. It's it's got a girlness to it that a guy could never do.
Right.
And that's it, but yet it's aggressive and tough, and it's an ass-kicking song. So I think that's a pretty rad thing.
Yeah, I was a fan of the Donnas, who were this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the Donnas. And they had a very similar sort of thing. I mean, obviously they got a lot of comparisons to the Runaways, which I think some of them were unfair and probably hurt their career. But they had that same sort of, how do you take the kind of male macho swagger and apply that to a female perspective? And I think the Runaways did that very well as well. And musically, they were this kind of mix of, you know, a little bit of glam, a little bit of punk rock, you know, a little bit of just gutter rock and roll. They're great.
Yeah. You know the Donnas were called the Electro Cutes before?
No, I did not know that.
Serious?
Yeah. So I love that they just
good.
they kind of got rid of that cute thing.
Wow.
So we're Mickey, you and I are about to choose the top 4, but this is kind of closing arguments. Any other female rockers or any other influences or any even outside of it? Because I think of some of the discussion about who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who isn't. You know, Dolly Parton is a rockin'.
I love her.
That girl rocks. Loretta Lynn, come on.
Oh, I love both of them actually.
Yeah. And I think about, yes, it's female rockers, but it's also women who rock. And I think of how the lifestyle of a musician can be really challenging, and how there are individuals who've stuck to their guns in a career that can take everything from you for multiple decades. And that is a rocking thing to be. That is a strong and powerful thing to be, music aside.
I would like to throw out there Catherine O'Hara as Mickey Crab in A Mighty Wind. When she just says, someone came up to me and she's just like, you rock me, you rock my world. And honestly, that's my favorite moment of that movie. But I think of this like, oh, someone just rocks.
Somebody just rocks. They just rock. So, Mickey, I'm going to do the easy part. I'm going to pick one choice, and that is the common choice for both Richard and Michael, and that is St. Vincent. So they will each get a point for that. And I'm going to ask you to really do us a solid here and pick 3. And you get to select from the following: Chrissie Hynde, Joan Jett, Exene Cervenka from X, Siouxsie Sioux of Siouxsie and the Banshees, Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, or Sharon von Etten. So you get to pick 3 from those names.
Okay, I'm going with Joan Jett.
Sweet.
Badass and pioneer. Chrissie Hynde.
Nice.
And just because I like Karen O. From the
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It will roll.
Awesome. That is radical. So let's raise a bottle of Johnny Walker for these women who rock, and thank Miki Black for being on our podcast this week. Really appreciate you coming around.
This is great.
doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This was very, very fun.
It's been awesome. So this has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I, as always, am Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.